All right, it's Friday evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Wilhelm here with weather for Weather Geeks, gearing up for Memorial Day weekend, and we've had warmer ones, that is for sure, but the forecast could be worse. We could have 3 days like we had yesterday. Today was an improvement. The weekend will feature more incremental improvements, but for the second consecutive day, our official high at the airport today was 55, our seventh consecutive cooler than average day. We're down to 1.0 degrees above the average for May thus far. We're going to finish the month probably pretty close to the average for the month as a whole. We got off to a warm start with a few 80-degree days earlier on this month. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 80-degree plus days, but we're going to make it, probably 10, 11, maybe 12 or 13 consecutive cooler than average days here during the second half of the month. And today's high of 55 was a full 18 degrees below the average. Our banner says yesterday. This is actually today's numbers. Very, very impressive stuff for this time of the year. And, everybody's kind of losing patience, of course, with this cool and damp weather when we look back at the last 90 days. Of course, it hasn't rained every single day this spring, but it has been a wetter than average spring overall in most of eastern Ohio and western Pennsylvania. Everywhere you see blue on this graphic, that is above average precipitation for the last 90 days, which takes us back into mid to late February, but for all intents and purposes, we're talking about meteorological spring here, March, April, and May. If we rewind the clock to last year at this time, no official drought at this time last year in Ohio, but it wasn't long after late May. As we got into the summer, and then especially late summer into fall, we had a pretty serious drought that emerged in Ohio, specifically in the southeastern part of the state. The drought never was terrible in most of our TV viewing area. It got a little dry at times here locally for sure. I do think that this summer will be a little bit different. I think the drought concerns will be mostly centered on the upper Midwest, parts of the Mississippi Valley this summer, kind of the Corn Belt, if you will. And while there very will likely be some dry stretches at times, just like every other summer, across eastern Ohio and western PA, I don't think we'll see an emergence of an exceptional drought anywhere in the region this summer with a more active pattern for our part of the country. Now, today was an improvement over yesterday. Not as much rain today, but we had a couple of showers and sprinkles that moved through late this afternoon, early this evening, a couple of rainbows. As a result, there's not going to be many raindrops overnight. Maybe a sprinkle, maybe a shower. Same idea Saturday. Vast majority of the day should be rain-free. We just can't rule out a sprinkle or a shower. We'll probably start the day with some sun, and then after a cloudy midday, increasing amounts of sun during the latter half of the afternoon into the evening. Should be a pretty clear sky for Saturday night, and a partly to at times mostly sunny sky for Sunday. And I think we'll see a decent amount of sunshine on Memorial Day itself on Monday. So, don't alter those outdoor plans this weekend. Just be prepared to, wear a jacket at times, especially on Saturday. But we're just not looking at much rain at all. And I think we'll be dry from start to finish on Monday, and that will be the best day of the 3-day weekend. Temperatures approaching 70 by the end of the day on Memorial Day on Monday. All right, longer range trends. In the medium range, some raindrops may return at times Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. And while next week will not be as cool as this week, it'll still be largely a little below the average. When we look at the longer range, this is the 6 to 10 day outlook, the 8 to 14 day outlook in weeks 3 and 4. You'll notice the reds just are not going to be centered over our area, so we're not going to bust into a blowtorch pattern. We're not going to see 90 anytime real soon. But I do think that early June holds some promise to be at least closer to average and at times above the average. And in early June, that means, probably some days with upper 70s, lower 80s for daytime highs. Now, June as a whole, I don't know if it's likely to be any sort of significantly warmer than average month, but I also don't think it's likely to be a cooler than average month to kick off meteorological summer. All right, all next week we'll be talking about the 40-year anniversary of the most famous tornado outbreak in our region's history, and probably the most important singular weather event in in recent decades at least, in our part of the country. Highlighted, of course, by the F5 tornado that touched down near Ravenna and rolled through Trumbull and into Mercer counties. But I oftentimes talk about this outbreak and how that's just one of several tornadoes that impacted the area. That tornado gets all the buzz because it was an F5 and it produced, unfortunately, a tremendous amount of damage and some fatalities. But we had an F3 in northwestern Trumbull. We had an F2 in northern Columbiana. There was an F4 that kind of hugged the Mercer-Crawford County line for a while late that day. And of course, the tornadic activity continued into much of interior PA, southwestern New York, and up into Ontario as well. We'll be diving into the meteorology behind that outbreak 40 years ago next week. We'll be talking to some survivors. So each evening on our newscasts, especially Tuesday through Friday of next week after Memorial Day, we'll have some special coverage on our newscasts, on our social media outlets, and of course right here on Weather for Weather Geeks as well. Really, really, fascinating generational event. A lot of future meteorologists got interested in weather because of what either they witnessed that day or what they learned about in subsequent years. Again, probably the most important singular weather event in our region's history. 40 years ago next week on May 31st, 1985. All right, that'll do it for me on this Friday evening's Weather for Weather Geeks. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll see you back here on Monday on Memorial Day. Hope you and yours have a great holiday weekend.